Today's video does contain some disturbing subject matter, and as always, viewer discretion is advised. And if you have a true story you would like to send my way, just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And as always, thank you. I have a weird story about an ex-girlfriend that was absolutely crazy. But I didn't really know that she was crazy until a while after we broke up. When we were together, it was a great time. Emily was pretty much just a pure ball of energy and spontaneity. She was all about doing whatever we wanted when we wanted to, and she was typically up for anything. I loved that about her, and I would say that the 3 years that we were together were some of the best times of my life. I learned a lot about who I am, I had a lot of great times, and it was fun as hell. But all good things have to come to an end. While we were both really happy with each other and I thought we were going to get married, she ended up breaking up with me because she didn't want to be held down. She took my optimism of getting married to her and having a family as me attempting to have her settle down and dull her shine. I never meant for it to be like that. And I wanted to be with her, but if she wasn't willing to plan for the future, and she wasn't willing to calm down some, then it wasn't going to work. After talking through this for several days, and after spending a lot of time reflecting as a couple that loved each other, we both decided that we needed to move on with our lives without each other. Of course, I was deeply cut by this whole situation, and she seemed like she was as well. But it was her idea and a mutual decision. Neither of us was yielding on our position. I ended up moving out of our apartment and back in with my parents for a while, until I could get back on my feet. And while she and I agreed that we should still talk, it obviously wasn't going to work. The conversations would just end up with us talking about the good times that we had, and they were kind of emotionally tormenting. I think we both hated how it felt, and we pretty much went no contact with each other. We stopped calling each other and the texting was minimal. Until after a few months, we had basically moved on completely. By the time that this story actually happened, we had been split up for almost 7 months. And I was at a point where I was ready to move on and start looking to see if I could find someone else to spend my time with. After hanging out with a few friends and spending some time with a couple of guys in my circle, I ended up meeting Mariah. Mariah was one of the most attractive ladies I have ever met, and she and I hit it off right away. We spent the entire night that we met getting to know each other, and we agreed to meet up again in about a week and to actually have a formal date. I was ecstatic and a bit nervous for obvious reasons. I will say that my excitement kind of made me a bit blind, specifically to the fact that Emily texting me as soon as I got home that evening should have been something that was a bit strange. The minute that I got home, I got a message from her that basically said, "How are you doing?" I really contemplated not responding to her because I was in a really good mood, but then I thought that that would have been incredibly rude. Especially to someone that I used to love and was really close with for 3 years. I responded that I was doing better, that things were kind of looking up, and just things that were generally positive. I asked her how she was doing, and she ignored the question by asking me why I was in such a good mood. It was a bit odd of her to ask, but she asked, so I responded. I told her that I felt like I was finally at a point where I could move forward with my life. She responded with, "So you met someone new?" I told her that I may have, but said that I didn't really want to talk about that with her right then, and again, asked if she was okay. She just responded with, "Don't worry about me. I'll just leave you alone. I'm really glad that you're happy, Jason." I wasn't in the mood to deal with this, so I just locked my phone and kept on looking forward to the next week. The day of our date finally came along. Mariah and I had been talking pretty much daily, and it was pretty clear that this was going to be the start of something serious. We met at the place where we were going to have our dinner, and the entire night was perfect. She was exactly what I was looking for. We had the same interests, the same future plans, and based on our conversations, we had pretty much agreed to skip the dating part of things and just move straight into a relationship. Which sounds really dumb, but it honestly felt right. After we finished eating, we were about to head out, and I ran to the restroom really quick before we left. Then we stepped out of the restaurant and we were saying our goodbyes, and right before we both left, it occurred to me that I had left my watch on the sink in the restroom. I told her that she could go and that I would call her when I got home so she didn't have to wait. But she said that she was okay with waiting for me outside. I ran back in and went straight for the restroom, and thankfully, the watch was still sitting on the sink. I grabbed it and made my way back out, and as soon as I stepped to the front door, what I saw horrified me. Right outside of the restaurant, just off to the side of the front door, Emily was on top of Mariah and was beating her senseless. I immediately ran out the door and more or less tackled Emily off of Mariah, and then went to get Mariah up from the ground. She was a mess. Her clothes were messed up, her face was bloodied, and she was very clearly confused. As soon as I started helping her, Emily started screaming about how I was hers, and that I needed to come back to her. At this point, I lost it. I started yelling about how we broke up 7 months ago, about how we had agreed to not be together, and she started talking about how she was wrong and that she knew that I loved her and that she wanted to be with me for the rest of her life. She then started screaming about how she was pregnant, and that it was mine. Which was pretty clearly a lie. We'd been split up for, again, 7 months. If she was pregnant with my kid, she would have been showing. Thankfully, around this time, the cops finally showed up. It was explained to them by the people that saw it happen that Emily had literally been waiting outside, and as soon as I walked away, she jumped Mariah. She attacked her when she wasn't paying attention, and was just beating the hell out of her. Then, after a few moments, I came out and broke it up. After a few people told the cops the same story, and the restaurant showed the officers the footage from the front security cameras, Emily ended up in cuffs. The whole time that they were dragging her away, she was screaming about how much she needed me, and how much she loved me, and how she knew we were meant to be together. And then pretty quickly changed to this was my fault and I needed to bail her out. Basically, showing the whole world that she was crazy. I ended up going with Mariah to the hospital because her head had hit the concrete pretty hard when Emily jumped her. It was one hell of a conversation when I had to explain to her who Emily was. Made even more awkward when I mentioned that us breaking up was actually her idea, because she didn't want to be held back. Thankfully, Mariah thought the whole thing was hilarious, and despite the stitches that she ended up with, it made the night even better. In Emily's twisted attempt to hurt Mariah and get her to not want to be with me, she actually brought us closer. Mariah and I ended up actually getting married, and we've been together ever since. And all Emily ended up doing was catching a battery charge and giving the two of us one hell of a first date story. had a pretty crazy situation that happened with my ex about 5 years ago. And while some people may look at it and think that it's not really that big of a deal, it seriously scared the absolute hell out of me. I'm going to try and not make this story a long read, but I am a bit of a wordy person, and I'm sorry if it comes through as being way too verbose. So, like I mentioned, 5 years ago I was in a relationship with a lovely lady named Elena. Elena and I were dating for about 5 months, give or take a couple of weeks. I was pretty happy with her for the most part. We got along well enough, we agreed on most things, and I think we were both pretty comfortable with how things were going between us. It was hitting a point where it was getting kind of serious, and I was personally thinking about the future. I really thought that we had something going at around that 5-month mark, but then there's the story of how she became my ex. I showed up at her place one day to surprise her and ask her to go to dinner with me. I was dressed nicely and ready to spend a good amount of money on literally anything she wanted that night. Except I found out that what she wanted was to spend the night with her ex-boyfriend, and not me. When I showed up at her place, I literally saw them in the living room through the window, and while I won't describe what I saw, I will say that it was pretty obvious that she was enjoying her time with him. It hurt, but it was also one of those moments where the pain led to clarity. She clearly didn't want to be with me, and I could accept that. I actually called her phone while standing outside of her place, and when she answered and told me that she was just watching some TV to relax, I kind of went into smartass mode and said something like, "It must be hard to watch the TV with the TV off and your ex on top of you, huh?" She looked out the window and saw me, and I gave her a slight wave, and then walked back to my car and left. Like I said, it hurt, but I finished that night out by going to a nice steakhouse with my mom. That may sound pathetic to some, but I took my mother out for a nice dinner, and I told her that Elena and I had broken up, and I just wanted to spend some time with her. She appreciated it, and that's all that matters. Of course, Elena wanted to try and fix things with me and kept calling me. I turned my phone off for the night and decided that I would talk to her again the next day. When she called me and told me that it wasn't what it looked like, which is a great excuse to use when someone's literally watching the whole thing from the window, I told her that I didn't care and that she just needed to come over and get the stuff that she had left at my place. After about an hour of arguing, I pretty much told her that if she didn't come get her things, I would be burning them out back that night, so she had about half an hour. She relented and said she would come get them, and I thought that that would be it. I thought that she got it, but of course I was wrong. When she showed up, she tried her damnedest to convince me that it was a one-time thing and that she made a mistake. Which, yeah, she left her blinds wide open while going at it with her ex. That was a pretty dumb mistake. I told her that I wanted nothing to do with her, and that I was done with our relationship, and that I hoped that she would be happy with her ex. It was then that she got aggressive with me, screaming about how I needed to think about what I was throwing away, and that if I was seriously going to break up with her, I would regret it. After arguing about all that, she went into the denial phase of things and started screaming that the relationship wasn't over because she didn't agree to break up with me. I told her that it wasn't a contract, and that she was being creepy. But she just kept saying that we weren't broken up. I'd finally had enough and gotten enough of my anger out, so I had told her to leave. She just said, okay. But of course, as she left, she tried to exit with, "I love you." I said a few choice words and admittedly shoved her out of my door and locked it. Once again, I thought that that was the end of it all. I thought that she would get it eventually, but the constant phone calls and texts proved otherwise. She called me constantly over the next couple days. I answered one of her calls and she tried to give me a sob story about how much she missed me and was thinking about me. I told her that I wasn't thinking about her at all, and that I had never been happier now that she was gone. She laughed at this. She actually laughed when I told her that I was happy without her, and said that I was being, in her words, so silly. After I stopped answering her calls and texts, I started getting calls from people that I knew. My mom called me asking why she was calling her. My brother said that she had showed up at his house, an hour away, and asked him if he had spoken to me. She'd only been to his house one time, and that was near the beginning of our relationship, so I was surprised that she remembered how to even get there. I got a call from a couple of my pals saying that she was texting them and asking them to call me and tell me to talk to her. It really hit the pinnacle when my boss called me and said that she was seriously at my work asking for me on my day off, and that she had said that she wasn't leaving until she spoke to me. I told him to go ahead and call the cops and have her trespassed, which he thankfully did. It was at this point that I called her and screamed at her to leave me the hell alone. I told her that if she didn't stop bothering everyone, I would get a restraining order against her. I told her that I just wanted this to be a peaceful breakup and that I really wished her the best, but her future was not with me. Of course, she kept trying to convince me that we were right for each other, that she was my soulmate, that I needed her. I told her no, just pretty much like that, and hung up the phone. At that point, I probably should have contacted the cops and tried to get a no-contact order. But, honestly, I wasn't sure if they would give me one because she hadn't really broken any laws. She was being annoying and, I guess, technically harassing me, but there hadn't been any reports of anything yet, beside the trespassing, and they likely wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So, like a dumbass, I let it go, and just said that this would be the end. Then, about a week later, I realized that it wasn't going to be the end. I'd been out most of the night, and had been drinking with my friends, just trying to have a great night with the guys. I'd pretty much gotten to a mental state where I'd forgotten about the whole thing, and I was pretty well happy, especially with whatever I was mixing that night. I was not blackout drunk, but I was definitely feeling it. When I got home that night, everything was as it was supposed to be in my life. My friend, Jack, dropped me off and made sure that I got into my apartment and that I got to bed. He told me that he would lock the door on his way out so that I didn't have to worry about anything. I drunkenly thanked him, and that's the last thing that I remember before passing out on my bed. I remember it though, so that tells me that I was not blackout drunk, just pretty drunk. When I finally woke up the next morning to my head starting to hurt, I opened my eyes and nearly pissed my pants. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Elena in the bed next to me, just staring at me with a creepy smile. I completely flipped out and asked her what the hell she was doing, and she told me that she was watching me sleep because I look so cute when I don't know what's going on. And that told me all I needed to know. I grabbed my phone, and I called 911. I told them that my ex-girlfriend had broken into my home, and that I needed the police there right away. The whole time that I was on with the dispatcher, she was screaming about how she was going to tell the cops that I assaulted her, that I beat her, and other things. She told me that she would make sure that I went to prison. Again, all while I was on the phone with the dispatcher, so thankfully they had it on recording. I immediately went outside to wait for the cops, and kept the person on the phone until they got there. Of course, this was a mess in and of itself. Telling them that she had broken into my apartment while I was home, and that I smelled like alcohol because I was drunk the night before. They definitely didn't see the emergency in what I was saying, but I basically said that I wanted her out of my house, that my name was on the house and hers wasn't, and that I wanted to charge her for trespassing. They then, reluctantly, went in and told her to get out. And, of course, she tried to tell them that I hit her. At this point, it looked like a lover spat to them, so they just did what they could to get her off the property. I thanked them and asked them how to get a restraining order, and thankfully one of the officers did seem to actually see what was going on, and he gave me the information I needed. After I got the restraining order, she actually seemed to get that it was over, and she didn't bother me much anymore. I have no idea how the hell she got into my house. Jack told me that he made sure he locked the front door. All of my windows and back doors were always locked, and she didn't have a key. That is, unless she had stolen my key while we were together and made a copy. Thankfully, this was pretty much the end of it all, and I haven't seen her since. The reason that I even thought about this and thought about submitting the story to you was that she actually tried to add me recently on Facebook. I was a bit confused on who it was at first because her first name was Elena, which told me it was probably her, but her last name was the same as mine. I decided to snoop around on her timeline a bit, and, come to find out, she had actually just gotten out of another relationship and changed her name to match mine. What's even funnier, after I messaged her and told her to leave me the hell alone, I saw that she changed her relationship status to "It's complicated." I have a bit of a creepy and short story about my ex-boyfriend. It's one of those stories that was weird to me, and it is creepy, but I genuinely never expected Adam to do what he did, because he didn't seem like he was the type. The year that we were together in high school, he was kind-hearted and a sweet guy. So to have him end up so vindictive and aggressively petty, it was so far out of left field. I guess I should further explain our relationship and Adam as a person to really make it clear just how weird this was. Adam and I were, as I said, high school sweethearts. We got together junior year and were together all through senior year, and he was a smart kid. He got good grades, and he and I got along well enough to make it a good relationship. We were one of the couples in high school that everybody knew. Like, if you said Megan and Adam, they knew who we were, and that we were together. Unfortunately, we ended up growing apart pretty quickly after graduation. I had ideas for what I wanted to do, he had ideas for what he wanted to do, and they just didn't mesh together. So, we ended up deciding that we needed to go ahead and see other people. I won't get into the specifics of all that. It was sad, but for the best. Skip ahead to around a year or so later, and I've moved on and not really thought about Adam for a little while. And not to be rude, but I had just moved on with my life and everything was going pretty well for me. I wasn't dating anyone at the time, but I did have a few guys that I spoke with often and was pretty close to. They knew that I wasn't seeing anyone, and they all also knew that I wasn't really looking to get with anyone. So, imagine my surprise when I get a text from one of them asking me when I got back with Adam. I called him and asked what the hell he was talking about. He then told me that I had changed my relationship status on Facebook to being in a relationship with Adam, and that I had been posting pictures of him on my wall all day, talking about how much I loved and appreciated him, and how happy I was that we were back together. Big problem with that is that I didn't have a Facebook account. I'd had one at one time, back when I was a freshman, but I had deleted it a long time prior to this conversation. So, I asked him for a link. When I tried to visit the account, pretty much everything on it was, of course, privated, but the account had my name and an older photograph of me. I then asked my friend to send me screenshots of the page so that I could see what they were saying. Sure enough, this page was posting a ton of things about how they loved Adam more than anything, and they were posting a ton of old pictures of us, talking about how happy we were together, and several other things that were really weird. He then said that he had also gotten a message from the account, and the person pretending to be me told him that, since I was back with Adam, we couldn't be friends anymore. He messaged them to call him, and the person just responded with, "Sorry, I can't." What really sucked was that this person had added quite a few people as friends, and apparently it had existed for a couple of months to make it look more legitimate. My friends had all accepted the friend request thinking it was me, but Facebook wasn't really a point of conversation, so none of them had told me about it. They just thought it was a normal thing that had occurred. They thought I had started an account to keep in touch, and added my friends. I ended up texting everyone that I could to tell them that the person on Facebook was not me, that it was someone that was pretending to be me. I say someone, but I knew who it was. I did actually end up making an account on Facebook and adding everyone, and then making a post about how I was not with Adam, and that the person that was saying they were me was not me. In the post, I also requested that everybody block them. Interestingly enough, that fake account actually blocked me, and then started posting about how my real account was fake, and that they needed to block me. It was almost funny. As messed up as it was a situation that I really couldn't do much about, and I just had to pretty much ignore it. My friend kept the person on their friends list, and even though everyone that they had been adding had blocked them, they kept on pretending for the better part of a year. They would constantly post about things that they did, things that didn't happen, dates that never occurred. They posted every month about their month anniversary. They posted about how they were engaged and even had a fake date for their wedding. Adam literally kept this facade up for around 10 months before finally abandoning it. And he did so for an audience of nobody except himself and the one friend that kept me looped in. If it wasn't so creepy and sad, it would have almost been hilarious that he was so obsessed with pretending to be with me. In the end, I never contacted him about it, because I knew he would deny it, and I really didn't care. I made sure that everyone knew it was fake and that no one fell for it after the beginning. I know some people may say that this wasn't that creepy, but to me, it really was. Adam was clearly not okay, and I never would have expected him to do this, considering how our relationship went when we were together, and that our breakup was a completely mutual thing. I'm a 30-year-old male. I was having a bit of a dry patch with dating. I'd broken up with my fiancée, and I was absolutely crushed by it. I found out that she had been cheating on me through the last 6 months of the relationship. I didn't want or need anything serious, though. Mainly, I wanted to see what was out there, maybe find a friend or something. I made my profile, matched with a couple of women who I was attracted to, and liked their profile. It was a mixed result. Some of the women seemed to like me, and others weren't really all that interested. It happens, though. One of the women seemed nice at first. Let's call her Julie. She worked as a nurse and was pretty busy. Given my job and other commitments, that worked well for me. I didn't want someone who could potentially become too clingy. Julie and I messaged each other, exchanged some pictures, and talked to each other. She had a nice voice. I didn't tell her where I worked, but I didn't realize that she had somehow managed to find where I worked. I work as a lawyer in a local law firm. She came to my workplace. We hadn't even gone on a date or met up yet. I wasn't very happy to see her, to be honest. I came out and spoke to her, and I politely asked her not to come to my workplace again, and stated that it made me uncomfortable. She agreed that it wasn't the best, and things seemed to be okay. I was completely put off by her behavior that I decided I didn't want to have anything to do with her. I sent her a message later that day and told Julie that I didn't want to talk to her anymore. Looking back, I probably should have just ghosted her and left it at that. But I removed her and then blocked her. The next day, I go to the office and the security guy walked up to me. He told me that my friend was back again. When I turned to look at her, she was waiting outside the company property, just staring at me. I told the security office that I wanted nothing to do with her and to keep her away. He agreed. I started noticing her around more and more. Eventually, I put her out of my head and found a woman that I did get along with. She always made me smile, and I decided that it was time to give it a go. We went out on a couple of dates together, and after a month or so of dating, we decided to actually be a couple. Things were going well. She called me, and she sounded upset whenever I answered. She then asked me if I was cheating on her, and this took me by surprise. I wasn't, and I told her that. And she then told me that someone called Julie messaged her on Facebook and told her that we were together. My girlfriend believed me and told her to screw off. She, however, kept trying to contact her and message her. It actually took months of Julie harassing my girlfriend before she finally disappeared. I don't know why or how, and I don't care. All I'm happy about is that Julie is no longer in my life. So this was a collection of creepy ex-boyfriend and girlfriend stories. Ex-lover stories, as I typically say, but I think I just put ex stories in the thumbnail this time, which it's the same thing. It all means the same. Ex people that you dated, that they dated, I guess, not you specifically. I don't think you dated any of these people. Though maybe you did at some point, and if you did, I'm very sorry. Yeah. This was definitely an interesting collection. A good one. Creepy stories. Creepy people stories. Less stranger than stalker. Less stalker than stranger. What? Less... It's creepy. They're scary stories with ex people. No, they're still people. Ex-lover people. You know what? I'm done. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to the channel. Never expected, but genuinely appreciated. Always, always helps. And if you would feel so bold, leave me a comment down below. Letting me know how you're doing, how your day's going, just anything. I'm always willing to listen to what anybody has to say, to read the comments, to say howdy doody to all the fans and friends, the members of the Nevermore, because I love y'all. I really do. You all are amazing people. And I don't know, just it's really nice to have everybody around and leaving comments, because it reminds me that you guys are real. Gives me that sense of community, I suppose. Yeah. Well, I hope you're all having a beautiful week. And of course, my friends, I hope I do see you on the next video. But until that day comes, and until that moment happens, remember you're loved, you're valid, you're important, you're the best you that you can be. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. And until I see you again, much love, and sleep well.